And returning back to that first pick status on the blue side, generally leaves open the Swain, though, for the red side. So that is picked up. Curious what they're going to go for here. Looks like support, and then maybe think about a jungler later.
The flexes already begin. No Vladimir taken first round. The Kindred priority has been going up and up in the LCK. Spirit, legendary Kindred player from when the champion was released. A lot of people around the world looked to his builds when they were working out how to build Kindred. Played it last time out, was actually bossed around by Tarzan's Trundle. So they still will look to lock it in here most likely, although seems like it's just an extended hover. Maybe Spirit feels better after losing the matchup already.
Yeah, could be a bit of mind games. We'll see if they do return to that pick. They want the Tom Kents for Tucson. The unfortunate stat for him is that he's 0-4 on the pick. So we're hoping that he can get his first win on the Tom Kents tonight.
Now, he passed the eye test, if you remember the loss last time out a couple of days ago. Monstrous performance on the Tom Kents, but still went on to lose the game overall to Gen G. And it will just be picking up the Kindred anyway. As here's a Braum, and now maybe you wonder about funny business, because we see a Morgana and a Braum on the side of Griffin.
And a Swain, too. You know, you think maybe, okay, Morgana, Braum, bottom or something like that, but then where does the Swain go? Is it going to be flexed into the mid lane, the top lane? Do we see some kind of funnel, you know, with the Braum coming on here? You pointed to the exhaust for Tarzan. It's definitely an option, and it's very flexible here for Griffin.
Freecs, one of the best funneling teams we have in Korea, and it looks like they will be facing one. Might be one way to get around the dominance of Kindred in some of these 1v1 jungling matchups. We'll have to keep tabs, but looking very likely that Griffin will be going towards the funnel. Don't have to. Braum obviously very strong compositionally against the Zoe, so don't always want to ideally run the Braum support, but Varus got buffed, and Varus Braum as a duo can be blind picked into most matchups, but then you'd say, where's the Morgana going? So the red flags are certainly being waved, just like you are waving the Griffin flag with your triple facial Griffin logos that I, of course, will continue to see all broadcast.
Not taking them off. They'll stay on for the entire time that Griffin's playing, at least. The Mundo gets taken away after the Darius bounce. Just things that you have to do on this patch. Mundo looks like he may receive a nerf on 8.14. It's not a huge one, but let's take a look at this also. The Ezreal is going to be banned. You mentioned the Varus, still available here if they want to move into that.
And the big buffs are towards Caitlyn and Trist, which probably won't be seeing play because of their build pass, but Varus got buffed and was already seen as a strong laning and thus powerful champion. But hello, we're going to see Lucian untouched on the hotfixes here. We've seen mid lane Lucian from Perks and around the world, so that could be the case. So we might be seeing Viper funneled on the Lucian. And then Lucian Braum, if they're the duo, even in the funnel, you take the wrong face check, you get that passive going quickly because of the Lucian and Braum synergy. Cool things could happen. I'm sure Freecs are very well aware of what they are expecting to face here, but they're not necessarily going for winning lanes. The Gangplank can do competitive in most lanes, but isn't going to be in a position of supremacy very often. I think the final pick will be here. Looking for the bot lane, you'd imagine.
Yeah, the Varus seems like the obvious choice. The Ezreal, the Ashe taken away. Varus getting the little hotfix buff, and Varus Tom Kents not bad in its own right.
So we'll be seeing Swain Morgana bot lane, a Lucian and Braum funnel. That will be the case. We'd be looking for top lane here. Waiting to see what the decision is, though. They have a lot of flexibility at the comp. They don't have to go into funnel, but it looks like very likely we will. So Cho'Gath will be the choice for the top side. A bit of kill pressure on the Gangplank, but can also be a happy farm lane for the Gangplank. And we got the fun back in the funnel. We're going to have Viper roaming around trying to pick up all the farm on the Lucian.
It's an interesting one to try to funnel on. We've all experienced solo queue Lucians down on the bottom side. He can be really annoying in the lane, but if you're just trying to get him up to 3-4 items and take him out of that lane and just funnel him, send him around the jungle with that Braum, I'm curious to see how it will do in terms of comparing it to some of our other funnels.
And the unique variable compared to previous funnels is Kindred is involved against the funnel today. Fast, clear, very powerful skirmishing at level 3, but also really doesn't want to get tussled with by Lucian Braum if there's some sort of face check going on. It's going to be Zoe against the funnel. We've seen different people try different things. Nuke Duck in the EULCS went Smite mid lane Zoe, try to contest Raptors and things like that. I believe we'll be sticking on the Ignite. Wait to see how Kuro can do. Couple performances on the Zoe recently, but overall you'd say Zoe priority in Korea post-Rift Rivals has been on the wane. The win rate has jumped down a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely has. Going ahead and skipping the Galio this time around as well. They have their sights set elsewhere. The Braum Swain, I feel like, is going to be more than enough to deal with that Zoe. And, man, this is going to be Chovy's first game on the Swain, too, in the bottom lane. Swain Morgana, known as one of the really annoying and strong bottom lanes. They do have the Tom Kents to deal with all the CC, but I'm excited to see what Chovy can do there low-key beside the funnel.
I think that aiming in Tucson will be very comfortable with how strong Varus is and the small buffs to Varus and the hotfix that has come through and gone live today. But been a while. We've only had one funnel game in Korea post-Rift Rivals. Now Griffin, who's stepped away from the strategy. No Vladimir, not picked or banned between the two best Vladimir bot lane teams. A lot to consider, a lot to think about. I think Spirit's going to have a much better game on the Kindred than when he faced Griffin last time.
Yeah. Well, guys, I did get the word. The countdown has started. So tell your friends we got Afreeca versus Griffin, game number 1 right now. Well, you guys can hear the fan chants. I think it's obvious which side has more fans today. Afreeca, you know, it is early, right? It is 5 p.m. on a Tuesday evening, right?
You had to think about that really hard.
I know. I only cast 2 days of the week. Well, I guess I have Friday this week, too. Returning that to Spo TV this Friday, by the way, guys. But yeah, it is Tuesday evening, and not too many people in here just yet. They're slowly coming in, as they do for the LCK.
The most notable thing to me is there's more Griffin fans than Afreeca fans.
Yeah.
So it's a good sign of how fortunes are changing. The winds of change in the LCK. Something that we're going to keep returning to as the top 5 does firm. Looking at the start here for Griffin with the funnel comp. Expecting Viper to be roaming around with Tarzan, picking up a whole hell of a lot of gold. And I'm also expecting we won't have too many spectator overlay swaps, as we've been informed many times by Spo TV. It's a little bit complicated with some of the cool stuff we have. Soon to be some Rift Scuttles being kept tabs on the top of the screen.
Yeah.
Keen has gone Klepto this time. We saw him go Resolve Tree and beat a Darius at Rift Rivals, but it's against a Cho'Gath. He just wants to farm, so no need to go the Resolve first gangplank from Keen.
I like the water walking transcendence on the Lucian. I suppose you don't see the Lucian being funneled too often, but he is going to be in the river a lot with this kind of strategy. Also a little bit of extra cooldown reduction for the Lucian, who wants to cycle his spells a little bit more than some of the other 80 carries and funnel targets. Looking to take the Scuttle, and actually the Scuttle mark is going to spawn on the bottom side. So good luck to start this game over to Spirit on the Kindred.
Yeah, definitely feels good about that. That RNG can change things. They put a ward top side to get information, to know where the Lucian is going to. Spirit on the bottom side just wants to take away whatever camps he can. And the thing about Kindred against Funnel is Funnel can sometimes create vertical jungling. It can be difficult for the team to get to every single camp on the top or bot side, and sometimes you're just going for completely top side camps as the Funnel. If you get the right RNG with where the marks spawn, you can end up getting a lot of free marks that will be difficult in a more conventional game.
Yeah. Spirit, no doubt, is going to be better than my Kindred. A lot of people did see me being coached by LS the other night.
How'd that go, Valdez?
It was an experience, you know. LS gave me the LS treatment. Definitely taught me a lot, actually, about the jungle and what I was doing wrong. Told me to definitely be spamming my F keys and making sure I know what's happening in the lanes. Generally, I was just kind of running towards the lanes and seeing what was what, seeing what would happen without any further information. But I also learned that Kindred is quite hard. Very, very mechanically skilled champion, but a lot of fun. So,
was there any kind of general tips or takeaways that you kind of were led to that maybe you could share with the viewers here, who also are trying to make the climb?
well, I mean, I just learned a little bit about jungle pathing, as well as being a lot more focused on my lanes than I realized I had to be. Because, you know, I was a mid lane player, right, mostly, and that's what I've been playing for 6+ years, 7 years. So making the switch, it's definitely a lot harder than I realized it would be.
One thing with jungle is always that the mechanical part of killing the monsters is irrelevant, so you have a lot of time to consider what matchups look like, where you can and could be, where the enemy jungler can and should be. So, yeah, keeping your wits around you can be important there. We haven't had to keep our wits around us about this game because the finals having a lot of fun, walking around, picking up camps. Kuro can't do any counter pushing early in the game. So for now, at least, things are pretty comfortable. One thing I want to talk about is where this game will go eventually. As it's been an established strategy, we don't talk about it too much in Korea, but the basic idea is that Tarzan and LENGHT will be on welfare, not a lot of gold, but they are utility champions that don't scale with items. A lot of gold on a Cho'Gath, obviously the most gold onto the Lucian, who's picking up the bounty of gold, getting all of the monsters and also the majority of the lane minions. But what I want to look at is, in a 5v5 sense, very low initiation for Griffin. They don't really have range initiation out of a Rupture, and that is unreliable at best. So objective control, the first Baron at 20 minutes, forcing Afreeca to come to Griffin is what we need to see as the mid game comes around, because otherwise they have okay siege, but not fantastic siege. They really are around the team fights and the team fights that come to them.
Yeah, we do see Spirit up in the top side trying to make something happen here onto Sword. The Cho'Gath not tanky yet. You see Keenis trying to bait him in barrel range so he gets slowed, and then the Kindred comes in. Spirit has switched the mark here to Sword. Will they actually go for it? Look at how respectfully Sword is playing. He's not getting anywhere near, and he wards it too. This guy knows exactly what's going on.
This guy tops, for sure. Really impressively done there. It's tricky to sense that so easily. I don't know if he was expecting there to be a Kindred in that brush, or whether in the future he was worried that Kindred could just get into that brush. Didn't happen, and the freeze won't be ended. The Kindred disengages. Good news for the side of Griffin.
I mean, it kind of just looked like the Kindred Spirit just walked straight up there, out of vision, into the bush, and somehow he knew. I mean, they do have a decent amount of warding, but those camps that the wards are on are just not respawned, so you wouldn't see the Kindred anyway. Kuro getting really frisky in the mid lane. The Kuleng going to be able to push him away, but trying to bait in here. The Gangplank ultimate also coming down. They do force the double flash, but here is Kuro looking to get on in. Misses that trouble bubble, though, and Tarzan's there on the Braum. And that will be an unsuccessful gank in the end.
Pretty swift disengage gets them away. You start to see what can happen, and aiming isn't taking any negativity from this. In fact, you mentioned that this is Chovy's first visit to the Swain this season.
Spirit got the mark.
Yeah.
He just walks in and smites it.
That's big, but I want to talk about the CS lead that aiming has over this duo, unless he dies here.
Look at him, he turns it around, and a huge first blood goes over to aiming, and I would have to say more so, a bit of a mistake by LENGHT running straight at the Varus, says, here, take my life.
Yeah, Chovy and LENGHT together just aren't able to put out any threat. There's also a 22 CS lead over his lane opponent, because Chovy is only 47 CS and now 71. Picked up for the Varus, who had already shopped in a 1v2 scenario. Aiming says thank you very much, and now Griffin with a bit of egg on their faces.
Yeah, you put down your W, you get in range to ignite, but then I suppose the ignite range was a little bit too close for him. Just goes down in a couple of auto attacks and 1 Q.
Gotta say, the tech in the Varus lanes has changed quite a lot against Morgana. In this specific lane, we see Q-Max Varus much more often, regardless of which item build you're going, just for the ability to poke out Morg, because physical damage poke for a champion who walks up to try to get in W harass pretty frequently means that the LENGHT is often going to be on low health, and there's an extra 0.1 total AD ratio onto the Varus this week after the hotfix comes through. That means that it includes all the base AD you have, not just from item purchases. So in every point, you're doing more damage with your Q, and LENGHT definitely was front row to understand that.
He's got to be so careful. The stopwatch also was not online in that moment in time, so you would understand maybe he's trying to bait him in. But even then, Chovy was low on mana. Definitely just a bit of a mistake going into that one. Nice smite on the cannon there with the redemption. Guro showing off his Zoe mechanics in the mid lane.
Meanwhile, on top side, there's no enemy jungler. So Keen says, thank you very much. Klepto, shoot the Cho'Gath in the face. He's having a really happy time in top, and the farm numbers are really starting to hurt Griffin in the side lanes. As we saw more and more funnel, we came to understand that the power of the side lanes around the funnel was so important. Teams were really counterpicking either top or bot. And we definitely don't see any counterpicks for Griffin in the side lanes, so it's really about what they can do with Viper when he hits his item timings, because he's the only one who's really been able to escape the early game and feel good about how the first 9 minutes has gone.
Yeah, Viper, he's been in many situations where he does have to be the carry here for Griffin. Attempting to do that again tonight is going to deny Kindred of her 4th mark over on the right side, I would hope.
Just a note.
Looks like he did take it.
Just a note, aiming has gone E-Max. Previously, we've seen both Deft and Prey go Q-Max against a Morgana support. Again, because of the hotfix, it still is more damage on the Q than previously, and the Q doesn't get that much per level scaling in terms of damage, but the cooldown reduction goes down, so just want to note, aiming this time has gone with the E-Max, and we've already seen the laning phase going very comfortably to the side of Afreeca.
Spirit, having his way with the jungle, is going to look to take the Cloud Drake here, sitting on 3 marks currently. Just having a grand old time in the jungle. Already completed that warrior enchant on his jungle item.
With no successful ganks, having 3 marks is excellent. And 4, of course, is where you get the extra 75 range, so it's going to be desperate for that. Thusen and Spirit actually come mid lane. I think they saw Braum recall, just trying to create a bit of pressure here to try to contest some camps.
Well, you mentioned the 4th mark. This is going to be mark number 4.
So early.
Before 11 minutes, this Kindred, it's one of the things, you know, you're essentially giving up having a jungler, so the Kindred's like, well, I guess I'll just farm up and get every mark if it comes to me.
And that's why I wanted to talk about how tech has evolved. Because again, we said normally, when we do see funnel, it's strong side lanes. Don't see that here from Griffin. The Kindred's a new champion in the meta that wasn't really around when funnel was a thing earlier in the season. Now we're seeing Kindred, just from good fortune and also some nice pathing from Spirit, open up 4 marks early, potentially get to the 13-14 we saw from Score in some of those really big Kindred performances. So in a bloodless game, the Kindred is quietly having a really big one.
That is Spirit on it as well. We'll see if he can replicate that Kindred performance. If he can play like some of the other Kindreds we've been having here so far. Every time we look at this bot lane, it's just devastation for the Griffin bot lane after giving up that kill. They're just sitting here trying desperately to farm under the turret. You can see the turret HP now below half health. They're going to pull in aiming, but then the binding goes wide. Aiming underneath the turret forces that ultimate from Swain and says, well, now we're just going to disengage because I'm Tom Kench.
Hans has had good moments on the Morgana, 4-0 in terms of win rate, but this particular game hasn't looked great in the laning phase. Chovy, a different lane partner for him. That part has been rough as well, as Chovy's in a huge CS discrepancy. It's still 30 CS lead for aiming over Chovy. I know it's confusing, guys, but keeping you up to date, even though the scoreboard doesn't have them head-to-head, and they're going to lose this turret at 12 minutes. We go back to very early expectations of what you need to do against funnel. That was getting 3 outer turrets down by 15 minutes. Maybe you don't have quite that same expectation, but in a bloodless game, Afreeca do take the bot lane turret 2v2 at 12 minutes.
Yeah. Does open up this unsealed spellbook Tom to roam around the map now. Maybe some teleport plays. You can certainly try to make something happen onto the Lucian. Ganking the Cho'Gath might be a little bit harder up on the top side, but then again, if you bring, you know, 3 or even 4 people, I suppose perhaps it is possible. Sword doing a good job fighting against the Gangplank, even though he is behind. Doesn't have his feast available, but he forces out the cannon barrage from Keen. Maybe just trying to push it really fast before he does back.
Really surprising level 10. Obviously, the cooldown is long. He has a control ward, so there wasn't actually very many ways he could have been attacked. And obviously, there's no true enemy jungler, so there's not much threat coming from the darkness of the map. So curious stuff with his decision.
I mean, you see he doesn't recall. He just backs all the way, and then Kuro comes over, throws a sleepy trouble bubble over towards the top. So looks like the call from the team was, hey, there's a little bit of danger towards the top side. Get the hell out of there. Turns out that there was nobody up there, just the Cho'Gath.
And hindsight, always 20/20. On moments like this, we got the map hacks, so we can look really clever and smug most of the time.
Caster sight, it's 20/20 on the Rift.
Spirit walks down, walks up. First Drake went down pretty early to the side of Afreeca. Another expectation when you're winning the side lane so damn hard like they have in this game, and really need to start to understand how Viper is going to be able to overtake this game. Doesn't have the same pushing ability on the culling, but otherwise Illusion is still very powerful as a champion. But if you look at in terms of items, you compare him to the enemy jungler who's 100 CS down on him, their items are basically the same.
Yeah, they are basically the same. Outside of the Berserker's Greaves, I suppose that extra 800 gold coming in, but then you also take a look, and Lucian did update some of his items on the back, and has pushed far ahead, looking towards that Blade of the Rune King for the next item. Pretty interesting for the Lucian.
It's a standard item, you know, if you're just following a build path, but if you look at the enemy team, there's no beef there at all. There's really no health on anyone other than Tom Kemp.
There's Fish.
Yeah, but
they got that going on.
There's no health, so it's going to be more about pick. Speaking of pick,
they locked in aiming, force that devour. The chains go wide on the Black Shield Morgana. But in the end of this all, Spirit is going to pick up that Rift Herald. So a little bit of action in the mid lane, I suppose you can call it, but the big objective goes to Afreeca.
Aiming with the Season 3 Varus ultimate. Famously, that was the most missed ability, ultimate ability back in the day. So, whoops on that one, but his laning phase was good enough that we'll give him one. Everyone gets one when they have made some good plays on the map. Speaking of the map, seeing the turrets, of course, in the side lanes falling low, not quite going to be claimed, and now a duo lane there to try to extend the phase. Funny thing about the funnel comp is there are times where you will see the CS numbers between, say, Viper and Kuro not be massively different, but then it does accelerate around 15 to 25 minutes because you have the Warrior Enchant, because you just have the ability to kill those camps faster. So you can actually have a very back-ended, huge CS lead that isn't always seen in the first 15 minutes.
Of course, with the jungle item as well, Viper hitting level 12 first on the Rift. He's just pushing super far ahead of everyone else that is here. Lots of pings around the mountain Drake. It looks like Afreeca really wants to get on top of that. They already have a really fast objective-taking team with the Kindred, the Varus, and even the Gangplank. So if they can get that, that would be really nice for them.
I like to think that Spirit believes he's in a duel with Viper when it comes to items, because they have the same items still.
Yeah.
We haven't seen it play the Rune King second Kindred all season, but against the enemy team, you can understand it. Drake goes down, easily picked up by Afreeca. They got no pressure on the bottom side, so it makes sense that Griffin have to give up the Drakes.
It's kind of funny. I think the Kindred would like for the marks to be on the Drake at this point in time. Generally, that doesn't happen until I think it's 7 or 8 marks later on in the lineup. But because it's so deep in the jungle, the enemy wolves, it's really hard to take that away from Viper, who has total control of the backside of the jungle. So the Kindred might just stay on 4 marks for a while until he gets 1 kill.
How long will this control ward line of 5 stay from the side of Afreeca? It is beautiful. It is literally every piece of information you could want. There's one ward that Griffin have been able to sneak that isn't going to be spotted by it, but otherwise, vision domination. This is about the best game we've seen against the funnel in all of LCK summer when it comes to the enemy team actually facing a funnel that's not making mistakes. Is going to be mid lane turret going down here from the Rift Herald.
Yep. Rift Herald over the wall, Keen on the right side to just zone them in behind the turret. And nice objective already taken. You guys will notice it's pretty common against the funnel, but a big gold lead already. Change of Corruption's coming in onto Tarzan with the Black Shield, and the Morgana just too weak on top of that Cannon Barrage. Is this going to disappear? Now they're trying to take down this turret, at least get a nice follow-up on the damage. Looking for the pop forward there was Kuro. Is going to be dodged, or rather blocked by Chovy in the end.
And I really like what Afreeca are doing. We mentioned they had the winning side lanes. I think draft-wise against a funnel, it's come together really well. The Cho'Gath has had no value this game apart from being safe. Blind pick Cho'Gath, or Cho'Gath versus GP actually, I believe, in the end, was never going to have kill pressure on a GP, and while he's gone even in farm, Klepto Gangplank will do Klepto Gangplank things. We're going to watch the replay, how this all came together. Not the most wave clear on the side of Griffin. You can do a bit from Chovy, Viper can Q, but his ultimate's been nerfed in the wave clear mark. And speaking of marks, we see Lehans start to fall low and dies in basically one rotation from Spirit and a Q from aiming.
Yeah, got chained down by the chain of the chains of corruptions. So didn't have the blank shield available, got hit by the trouble bubble and just took way too much CC to the face. The rest of his team just desperately trying to save his life. Did not happen, and that's where we end up in this game right now. The Varus 2-0, aiming 2-0 over the 0-2 Morgana.
And it's actually only 400 gold between the duo lane Varus and the funneled Lucian. So that's not a huge lead by any means. Means that while the funnel has hit very good CS numbers, you know, close to a Flame Horizon on the most relevant opponent, I guess you would say, in Kuro. It's been at the cost of a lot. To get the funnel to happen here, Afreeca have taken 3 turrets, are up 5-2 in the Scuttle Crab. Shout out to SpoTV on that one. They've taken 2 Drakes this game. They're basically hitting the checklist, maybe a couple minutes late, but otherwise pretty ideally. And we already mentioned, Valdez, that even in a perfect scenario, Griffin doesn't have engaged. They lack a lot of standard tools to close a game. So I think Griffin are really going to have to super out teamfight Afreeca, and that's certainly something they can do. They are known as one of the best teamfighting teams in the world. But getting that team fight when you have no map control, the control wars they've never been able to clear, I just don't think they're ever going to get the ideal fight to actually set up.
It's not going to be ideal. We've seen them win a lot of less than ideal fights, though, from behind, trying to make it good. Even that game 2 the other day at OGN where the draft was awful, they nearly came back, but it didn't happen in the end. Now you can see what's happening. All that engage, or the lack of it, from the Morgana, the Cho'Gath, the Swain, can easily just be dodged by their composition or just gets devoured by the Tahm Kents. So it's just the slow and steady push from Afreeca. They seem totally fine to just sit 5 members in the mid lane and continuously push.
We usually make fun of teams for A-ramming. This might be the good time as Cho'Gath.
Oh boy, they don't have a Tahm Kent on their team. He's sticking down, even Wolf getting a couple of nibbles there on the backside. Sword is going to live in the end, just barely, but that's another turret that goes down.
The ARAM style from Afreeca, this is a great time for it. The enemy team, we've already said many times, doesn't have engage. Their wave clear is unreliable and short range. Just push up, throw out your skill shots, and if they hit, then you're going to DPS someone out or get a kill. And also get the back-end objective. So now it's a very long lane in the mid lane. I wonder how aggressively a control ward line they could stick with how good the early game can be. And can this Lucian at 2.5 items actually out-teamfight even the enemy Kindred when he's only a QSS and boots 2 ahead?
Well, there is a lot of talk about how Viper is one of the best players in the LCK, even though he's very, very new and young. And even about being the best player on the side of Griffin. So if there is a guy that you want to be on your funneled Lucian, it would be the Viper, but we'll see if he can actually pull it off.
Well, I definitely rate Viper as a great player, and I would say best player on Griffin, for sure. I think he's shown the most and been the most flexible. I think the draft, as it's come together, regardless of whether he said Lucian or his team chose the Lucian for the funnel, I'm not a big fan of this particular type of funnel, so maybe he'll pop off. Maybe he will be Uzi in 2014-esque on this Lucian in a team fight, but right now, I'll be a skeptic, Valdez, and they don't have the Nocturne to fly, and they don't have the force that they usually have had in those big turning team fights. And Sword especially, waiting to be convinced about the Cho'Gath.
Well, he does have his righteous glory. He's just sitting on the right side. He's very thick, at least, I suppose you can say, in terms of his feast stacks so far, but still waiting on an engage opportunity. That lack of engage might just come back to bite them in the butt if they do not find some kind of fight at an objective. Thinking about the Drake here, notice that they were edging on over as 5, but looks like Afreeca is going to be able to zone them out, and they will have to give it away.
you had the exact same team comp and the exact same scenario and took Ornn over Cho'Gath, I know I'd be a bigger fan just because the laning phase, you'd have less kill pressure, but you don't have a jungler, so you're not going to kill the gangplank anyway. For the team fight, you would have true engage, so that's kind of a hindsight thing that I'm thinking about in this scenario. Another objective goes over to Afreeca. If you don't include the Rift Heralds, if we didn't have the Rift Herald counter here, sorry, the Rift Scuttle counters, and the Rift Scuttle doesn't count, it is actually a perfect game for Afreeca in the first 23 minutes. We don't count Scuttles in that calculation. It's Drake's, Rift Herald, and also turrets and kills. And right now, Griffin have none of those.
Yeah. And the Baron. Don't forget about good old Baron. So we'll see if they can keep it up. As I'm a little bit skeptical that Afreeca can perfect game them from here. I think there still is a little bit left in the tank for this funneled Lucian. Generally does get far behind, but again, maybe it would have just been better to go ahead with the Kai'Sa. Maybe you would have been able to have that ridiculous late game. You don't necessarily have the Lulu for, you know, the extra support and all that good stuff, but might just be a little bit more effective than this Lucian when it comes to the very late game.
And you alluded to it already. They've definitely had that one Game 2 draft against Gen G that was a real stinker, that they really didn't have too much of a cohesive plan around how the champions came together or where they were strong and where they were weak. While we're not going to say the same thing about this draft, it is, again, on the side of unconvincing when it comes to min-maxing compared to some of their drafts earlier in the season. It's the middle of the season. It's the second round robin. They're 8-1, so they are in a great position, Griffin, but they're definitely not the finished article yet. The season has 18 best of threes. They'll most likely make playoffs because they're in such a great spot. No one is really putting up their hands. I know I'm not saying they're the best team in the world, and they're only now facing teams for the second time, so this is the first time Afreeca have been able to look at their own game and say, okay, what did we learn about playing against Griffin?
Yeah. They're trying to bait that Devour, and maybe then they'll consider a team fight, but for Griffin right now, it's just about poking and waiting. Let that Lucian get even more and more fed. They're 7,000 gold behind right now, so trying to force a team fight at this point in the game is probably not a good idea. Whereas Afreeca just looking to get as much value as they can on the map. They want another turret up on the top side. With this big wave, it looks like they should be able to take it out.
What are Griffin going to do? They're going to have to pull off an all-in with flashes to really turn onto this. The range of the Varus and Zoe is outside of the conventional engage range they have. Lehen's looking for a cheeky dark binding through the terrain there, but not going to hit. Afreeca just continue to roll on. They continue to push up their control vision. Barring a mistake, we're waiting for Griffin to hit an item timing where they can try to overtake the game. Speaking of item timings, first Essence Reaver Lucian we've seen in a while.
It's kind of interesting when you think about Essence Reaver. It's definitely hard to pick up after the Blade of the Rune King, a pretty expensive build, but if you want your Lucian to have that feel of like unstoppable late game, certainly just dashing and skating all over the Rift and doing tons of damage like that might be the way you get it done.
If you looked at the team of Afreeca and it was lower damage, a couple of tanks rolled in, a Mundo perhaps, and a tank jungler, then you would say the Essence Reaver might be the difference because you could just keep powering forward, resetting your passive, almost no cooldown on your Q and E. But you look at the enemy team, there's an immense amount of damage. So the one Black Shield and I guess a Braum W and E is not going to be enough to remove all threat from Viper. They have very little other threats on their team. I don't think the Swain is big enough to do too much. Doesn't even have Zhonya's at 27 minutes into the game. So it's very hard to see Viper just min-maxing every QE and auto to put out maximum damage without just straight up dying to return damage. So again, I like the item choice, sure, it's definitely an option, but I don't think it changes how these team fights play.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the damage on the enemy team, but you also have the utility of the Kindred as well. He just ultimates. If you're trying to all in with, you know, Swain and Cho'Gath in the back line, have that front line for your Lucian, and you're about to kill someone and move the tide of the fight in your favor, then all of a sudden, Lamb's Respite comes down, everybody gets healed up, they replace aiming into a better position, they can't kill him, and I just really can't see those fights going very well for Griffin.
The item tracker here is obviously a little bit hard to kind of parse too much from because it's a funneled 80 carry versus a 2v2 80 carry, but I think the big takeaway, Valdez, should be it's pretty similar, even though aiming was in a true duo lane compared to Viper, who was uninteractive this game. Lets you know that aiming's game's gone way better than expected, and Viper's about normal. Keen walks up. He's got 3 items, including a defensive choice, and that much magic resist on the GP. He doesn't give too many mundos about the Swain or the Cho'Gath in a team fight.
Yeah. He knows that he doesn't have to be the upfront source of damage. They already have Kindred, Varus, Zoe. So having that more of a bulky bruiser type gangplank is definitely going to be better when it comes to the team fights. Also helps him in the side lane up against Cho'Gath.
Level 17, he's at 2,900 health, so you forget that GP's base value is actually pretty decent, and he gets a lot of latent health from Sterix and Triforce and also Spirit Visage, a 3,000 health gangplank. While that's not as high damage like you're mentioning, if Viper dies, the enemy team doesn't have any damage, so you're not as concerned about Infinity Edge or any crazy damage items on the GP.
Yeah, you mentioned how the Swain is just starving right now. He desperately wants to have some farm. He's not going to be bursting you down like that 6-0 Swain you faced in solo queue.
Little moment, actually I'll hold on to it as Sword's being chased down.
Yeah, looks like Afreeca is going to get that first rotation, and Griffin once again, they're just delaying, so I think you can go ahead.
Swain does have the perfect timing stopwatch, and Zonius has double stasis in a team fight. You can use both. You haven't used your original. As here we go.
You got the slow here on a Keen. The culling comes in. The Black Shield is going to block that Chains of Corruptions. And maybe this is the fight that Griffin want to take here. You notice the Righteous Glory coming forward from Sword.
They're trying to disengage the Essence Reaver passive on Viper. I think it's down.
Yeah, he is going to be forced to blow that QSS. But the slow comes in. He has to flash away. And now he's out of this fight for the majority of it. He's just too low. Griffin, they want none of this. Just looking for that disengage, trying to lifesteal off the blue. Finding is going to come in. Kuro just popping his head forward. Tarzan, unfortunately, is going to have to jump to a member. They have a lot of disengage with the Swain and the Morgana, and somehow nobody dies.
But they need a free Infernal Afreeca. They could have even rushed towards the Baron, but maybe just a little bit too risky. They got 4 Drake stacks. We'll have Elder spawning as the next one. And I mentioned the Baron. They're just YOLOing on it right now.
Aiming so fed right now. You can just come over, have Tucson. Go ahead and do it. But look at Sword. He does have his feast available. The perfect Trouble Bubble is going to send Viper out of this fight. It's going to be all up to Sword here. Has the vision. Is it going to come in?
Oh, he got it!
Sword does it for Griffin! And he does have the stasis too. He's going to survive for now, but he already did his job. Unbelievable. Perfectly done by Sword.
Afreeca Freecs have done everything right. They YOLO on the Baron. Don't respect the flashover. And that means that Cho'Gath has certainly done his job. That's not going to be a perfect game. The perfect game is averted. And Griffin get a lifeline because Afreeca just too damn greedy.
It's huge. You know, you consider 3 minutes now of Baron where they can just sit back. There's no real way for Afreeca to push in easily. If Afreeca, with this gigantic lead and Illusion that's struggling to stand up and fight, with Baron buff, they could have just pushed down mid, take the mid turret, inhibitor, go up top, get more objectives, wait for the Elder, take that too. But this makes the game a lot more interesting.
And if you're the coaching staff, you've been watching this game, nodding your head, sipping your tea, thinking, yeah, okay, great stuff. They've done everything right. You spit out your tea at this moment and you say, how could this happen when everything before had been so measured by Afreeca, so intelligent? The flash smite, we always know that Cho'Gath is going to out-damage smite there. Smite early came through from Spirit, I believe. It was around 400 health when the feast came in. Very, very big mistake from the side of Afreeca means that Griffin, they still have a chance.
It's almost like they didn't expect it, you know? They didn't have any ward to spot Sword. He was totally unspotted.
So
just walked on in through the red side jungle and just flashed the wall.
So he was spotted, I believe, by the last bit of a green ward that was over, so it's a normal ward. It did time out, but they knew he was around, as far as I could tell. Didn't play around the fact that Cho'Gath could flash over. They cleared the blasting plant, but it wasn't enough. Afreeca Freecs, they'll be frustrated, but they're still in a really good spot in this game.
Yeah. Poking forward, there's only 1 range minion there, and they are able to take down the turret because Griffin is not in position. But look at this, coming from behind. Trying to get on top of Afreeca here. The Trouble Bubble is going to come down, but the slowed up Zoe, they get the knock up too. Can they get Kuro out of the fight? No, they cannot. The Lambster Spike comes in early, and the rest of Afreeca looking to disengage. Here comes that re-engage though. The Trouble Bubble is going to miss. And in the end of it all, Griffin can't find a pick, but they get a lot out of Afreeca here.
They use a lot of cooldowns themselves. Tarzan, Flash and Smite, Flash and Exhaust. The Essence Reaver on cooldown as well, as Viper uses ultimate at the start. Seeing Afreeca continue to push up, even against Baron. They have strong siege.
No lambs or spite now, so this might be their moment, but unfortunately, Sword caught in the front is going to just feast, aiming awkwardly, just not able to get out of that one. And now they lose their Cho'Gath. Afreeca now going to get on top of him, but he does have his Zhonya's ready to go. Does not matter. Kindred is going to pick up that kill, so now 2 kills more for Afreeca, and they can now push.
The full roll of the dice from Griffin is going to be answered by Afreeca against the Baron buff. They should be taking at minimum this inhibitor. 30 seconds left on the Baron. Griffin walk up, but this should be the first inhibitor to the side of Afreeca.
Notice that Griffin still standing here 3v5, but as the turret does go down, only the poke of Viper is going to try to 1v1 Keen up there on the top side. It's not going to be able to get him low enough. The rotation coming on in as a big wave in the mid lane actually means that Afreeca should be able to take out this turret too.
They're waiting on the respawn, Sword 5 seconds away, but Griffin have so little force. That's why they tried a very risky teleport play to get kills. Couldn't get them, Summoner still up on Afreeca. We could get the inhibitor, a second inhibitor turret, they back away. Still full control, Afreeca Freecs.
Really good position right now for Afreeca. Notice that Spirit is sticking around a little bit extra, trying to clean up some of the jungle if he can, but let's take a look at how Griffin try to make this fight happen.
Again, you're really rolling the dice on Cho'Gath getting in the backline and doing something, and while he can't die because he has so much damn health, he can't really influence the fight. A Rupture misses, the Feral Scream misses, Toby's ult is down, the threat from Griffin is down because also Essence Reaver, the effect is worn out from Viper at this point, so you can re-engage, you can push, you fall back to the siege, and it's just too straightforward for Afreeca Freecs to actually find a big advantage, and too situational for Griffin to get back in the game.
Yeah. I mentioned how this is Toby's first game on the Swain this season. Hasn't really been able to show off much of that. A lot of miss, never moves in general in a lot of these fights. And against the composition that Afreeca have, the Swain is just looking silly. I mean, you're going up against the kiting of Zoe and Varus and the Kindred, who are just going to hop away from the Swain trying to get on top of them. He's just walking around, flying around, just wondering where he is.
Viper's probably going to have to do it all. Initiate and also kite back and do damage. And with so much damage on the side of Afreeca, and we're already talking about initiating Lucian, you know that looking very unlikely for the Afreeca Freecs to lose this game in spite of their poor Baron play. They rotate around, trying to break all 3 inhibitor turrets to make the closeout even more elementary. Doesn't really feel like item choices can change this game for Griffin. Doesn't really feel like adding a death cap out of nowhere to the Swain is going to make Griffin win a team fight, and that's kind of the struggle you have. It really feels like so much of this game was shaped about the pick and ban.
Yeah. Comes down to if Afreeca is going to give them an opening. Will Afreeca make a mistake? You know, maybe someone gets caught out. Maybe they can send a couple of members up to the top lane and try to catch Keen all alone. That would really be the only way to try to sneak it away. Look at Afreeca. Thinking about this Elder, but they are thinking about the timing, I believe. They're not going for it just yet, wanting to wait for a better timing to go for it.
Furrow happened to be in a ward as well on his recall. Can control the map. Sword doesn't have his teleport for about another 45 seconds, so many inside tracks available for the Afreeca Freecs. Aiming is a monster in this game. 2v2 Varus was huge, and look at this, he has a 160 CS advantage over Chovy, who was his duo lane partner. That's a very relevant Flame Horizon, not the 1.5 that we see from the Lucian.
1.5 Flame Horizon, really only possible with your funneling. This is a free Elder over to the side of Afreeca. You notice that they were waiting until everybody went back, bought first, and then they want to just be as efficient as possible with the timing of the buff and keep it up for as long as possible on their strong push with the new items.
Afreeca Freecs, one of the best funnel teams in the world, are looking like one of the best teams to play against a funnel in spite of one mistake that has denied them so far a perfect game. Only the Baron steal to Griffin, stopping that from being on the charts. They have so much poke against so little engage, they continue to push, and there's only one turret short of the Nexus turrets left on the Rift.
Griffin still holding on to this one. We've seen them try to pull off miracles before, but it doesn't feel like this is a game where a miracle is going to get you back in it, just looking at these later game team compositions. But let's take a look at how they do want to do this here. Afreeca very respectful about the way they're pushing in. They're not saying, hey, we have Elder Buff, let's just go in and take the turret because it deservedly is ours. They're saying, okay, push it in, see what we can see. Okay, let's go take the Baron too, and then maybe push. Should be a free Baron this time.
Good news this time, they have a ward over and they can see Sword in the base. So this is the sort of Baron play that Afreeca Freecs should have made the first time around. Whoops, they didn't do that. And that means they get no perfect game, but the Afreeca Freecs back away, they won't care. But whether it's a perfect game or not, items being changed onto the Varus, who's gone. Thrown in a even higher damage build, went the Berserker Greaves. Feeling good is aiming. And now for Griffin. The reason why we're seeing Afreeca be a little bit tentative is that all Griffin can do is team fight when you come to them on their terms, and really the only place they can do that is under their own Nexus turrets. Otherwise they're going to be kited away. So fully committing to a team fight is the only way Afreeca Freecs could lose. They will have to eventually, just because of the nature of I need to blow up a Nexus. But otherwise they're going to get Barons. It's almost a 40-minute Baron, so the stats are going to be insane. And now they're ready to roll. They got 6 items on multiple carries.
Yep. Afreeca saying, let's roll. And go towards the mid side with this Baron buff. Still about 15 seconds on the Elder. Griffin once again just looking for that miracle engage if they can catch someone out without a Tom Kench. You know, maybe that was the moment right there because the Tom Kench is not really with the team right now, but still playing it tentatively. Just gonna try to turtle beneath their Nexus turrets and really can't blame them at this point.
Not really too much to add to this particular picture. They're not going for a 4-1, as Keen is staying grouped on the outside chance of an insane team fight from the side of Griffin. Safety first does delay the game. We're just waiting for Afreeca to look for bigger and bigger objectives. There's so few left. They have a lot of time on their Baron, still 2 minutes.
You can see what they're trying to do. 2 members down here. Now it's only Sword who's trying to get that flank through the little hole in the wall. Maybe if he could knock up Kuro here, or if they could lock someone up, that might be able to do it. Poke damage is going down onto Sword, but he's totally fine. The culling is going to be totally avoided, as well as the time. Okay, trying to get onto Kuro here. Does a nice bit of poking damage. The Locket's going to come out here. Change of Corruption on the Viper, as aiming is going to back off, and now Lambs despite this time Toby's in there, just barely able to get that Sonya's off. Look at the back line, though. Keen is going 1v4 and able to do it at this point in the game. Here comes Spirit 2 trying to lock someone down, and it looks like Griffin has run out of gas. Afreeca controlling this game from the get-go, winning against this funnel really, really easily. Going to be able to take out these Nexus turrets and take game number 1 against Griffin, the number 1 team here. Just picking up some extra kills on their way out, and there you go. 9-0 is the kills, 41 minutes and a half. Game 1 goes to Afreeca.
And if there was no Baron steal from Sword, it would be a perfect game as well. Close to perfect on the side of the Afreeca Freecs, and this is the sort of result they wanted. They were 2-0'd by Griffin 6 days ago. They get their rematch a lot earlier, and this is why I feel like the Griffin story is still to be written, because they are facing teams for the second time. It's one thing to watch VODs of how Griffin beat another team. It's another thing to watch VODs of how you lost to Griffin and adjust your own play. This was more about Griffin going for a strategy, but the Afreeca Freecs were squared up. They were ready to go. And now for the side of Griffin, they'll need a very different draft in game number 2 if they're going to come back into the series.
Yeah, I still have confidence. I still have the stickers on my cheeks. So we'll see if that tearing power will help Griffin in their next draft. I think definitely going to have to move away from the funnel as they move on to blue side for game number 2. Afreeca should be very happy. You know, the only team that was able to take out Griffin so far is KT, of course. Many other teams have taken 1 game, so it is still only the first step for Afreeca.
Watching the replay of the final fight, and, you know, Viper instantly DPS'd out. Compositionally, we said there's a lot of damage on the side of Afreeca. There's not going to be any ice skating into the front line, getting all your passive resets and also resets on the Essence Reaver because of the massive damage, and it's exactly what you saw happen in front of you. With winning side lanes, I think a Lucian funnel can work. G2 showed that But with losing side lanes, it was always a bit of inevitability that this would be a takedown as, okay, we're going to have a substitute in the mid lane.
There you go. Chovy Swain wasn't good enough for the Griffin coach. We will have Rather coming in. But guys, first a commercial break before game number 2.
안녕하세요. LOL 신문 10답의 박지선입니다. 오늘은 항상 행복한 그 틈을 만나보실 텐데요. 바로 하나생명 e스포츠의 린다랑 선수입니다. 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
그리고 오늘의 뽀삐는 바로 상윤 선수입니다.
오늘의 뽀삐로서 제가 또 경력 2년 차거든요. 바로 상대방 머리통을 부셔보겠습니다.
Let's get started. Starting from this summer split, you guys are joining LCK as a brand new team, Hanwha Life Esports. So, can you introduce yourself and your team?
Hello. My name is 린다랑. My team is Hanwha Esports team. Thank you.
So, what are the 3 big changes after Hanwha started supporting you guys?
Big money, big boss, big many 뭐야?
money?
Many food.
What is the one thing that you are better at compared to other teammates?
뭔 뜻이냐고?
힌트.
당연히 나도 모르지 뭘 물어봐.
다른 팀원들보다 내가 이건 더 잘한다.
따봉.
나봉?
thumbs up.
Is there any other poster that you wanna try for the rest of the split?
Double thumbs up. And big thumbs up.
Who's the one that takes good care of you at gaming house?
느낌상 누가 케어를 잘해주냐.
코치.
Except for the coaching staff. No coaching staff.
No, coach.
Players.
Players. 상윤. 상윤 is player's father. 일로?
아, 이거 거의 맞기 놀인데.
커니?
아,
한 대.
안 봤어요.
What is the one thing that you're better at compared to other players in Hanwha? Compared to other Hanwha players.
린다랑.
You're better than Linda?
린다랑.
In which part?
유시 part?
Like why?
Why? Very kind.
You're very kind.
Yes.
What about him?
Him?
What about Linda랑?
린다랑 is handsome guy.
Then he's better than you.
Better than you?
So Hanwha Life Esports has a lot of new members, right?
네.
Can you give us a brief introduction about them?
Brooke is cutie.
Cutie.
Okay.
And
Rebel is very cutie. And my support, beautiful. Wow, it's beautiful. It's good. My style.
you
Yes.
and Mighty Bears are the oldest members in Hanwha Life Esports, right?
Oh yes.
So what kind of person are you guys in Hanwha?
Mighty bear. Okay.
맏형들로
네.
어떤 역할을 하냐, 어떤 선수냐.
챙겨주죠. 그래, 할 말은 하자. 챙겨줍니다. 동생들 많이 챙겨주고요. 저희가 형으로서 형 노릇을 하고 있습니다.
What is the goal for the summer split as Hanwha?
It's number one.
Number one.
Number one. Let's get it. I got it. You got it. Let's go. Okay.
Any last message for your fans?
I love you. Bye bye.
지금까지 하나생명 e스포츠의 상윤, 민다랑 선수였습니다. 안녕.
저번에 했을 때보다는 솔직히 조금 봐줬습니다. 조금 봐줬는데 그래도 동생들을 또 이렇게 합법적으로 때릴 수 있는 경우가 별로 없거든요. 그래서 이런 자리 많이 만들어 주셨으면 좋겠습니다.
외국 나갈 수 있을 것 같고요.
그래. 하던
네, 그 재밌었어요. 감사합니다. 네.
지금까지 하나생명 e스포츠의 상윤
민다랑이었습니다.
감사합니다. 나는 행복합니다. 나는 행복합니다. 하나라서 행복합니다. 덩덩.
We're back, guys. Here we did have Afreeca versus Griffin game number 1. This was the first mistake that got Griffin behind, but the composition for Afreeca was too strong anyway, winning the draft and won in the game did Afreeca Freecs in game number 1.
And I think we have to definitely espouse the fact that they did both, because I think aiming was outstanding in the 2v2. Chovy first time we're seeing Chovy show some rookie tendencies, seemed really out of his depth on Swain in the bot lane 2v2, which I guess shouldn't be a huge surprise, but aiming really smashed the 2v2 matchup, and from there, it was only this one moment where Sword pulled off the jump scare flash smite, or flash feast, we should say. Otherwise, it was free access, loads of damage coming out from Afreeca, and even with all the items in the world, Viper couldn't get it done.
Yeah, it definitely felt like a very lackluster composition from Griffin. When you look at it, the GP had the free laning phase against the Cho'Gath, who could never, ever get into the back line. Way too much to kite and to push him back, to slow him down. The lick from the Tom Kents, the barrels. He could never get an effective feast off. The Swain, the one time he's there in the back line is when the GP is in the back line killing 3 other people. It was just not a very pretty game from Griffin, to say the least. We'll have to see if they put up a better fight against Afreeca, because Afreeca, they showed up to play today. They know what they're doing.
Definitely ditch the funnel, go standard. Maybe return to the funnel in game 3 if you have enough time to actually put together a more team-wide plan, but this one was half-baked, and half-baked against Afreeca Freecs, you lose.
Got to be full-baked for that one. Let's go ahead and take a look at the game facts, actually. Kuro on the Zoe is going to pick up the #1 damage there. It was nearly a perfect game, as you mentioned, but the one Baron steal, the jump scare from Sword on the Cho'Gath, that's basically all he did all game, unfortunately. It was the slow and steady gold advantage that went in the favor of Afreeca, who did close it out in about 41.5 minutes.
See how Griffin will react. First, we have to get to MVP. For me, it was aiming easily. I thought he was outstanding in this game, a player who's been kind of under the microscope a little bit. People don't really know too much to separate him and Kramer, and people kind of go one way or the other. Kramer, the more long-standing player, aiming the younger player, but I think his laning phase has always been his strength. Showed it in this one, 2v2. His command of Varus so much better than Chovy's command of the Swain. I believe we have a substitution to talk about as well, judging on what we saw just before we went to the break. Let's get to some of that information, Spo TV. Let's get going. It's a hot Tuesday, and it sounds like our MVP is ready to go.
Who's it going to be? Will be Keen on the GP.
He was good too.
The free lane up in the top side, getting that Klepto gangplank to lots of items, lots of gold, and there you go. I mean, he did very well. I would have given the MVP to aiming myself, but Keen, not so bad up in the top side on the GP.
I find it hard to give it to a GP who had a free laning phase, but still, he was able to do some good stuff in team fights. I liked his zoning on the backline, the 1v3, while the rest of his team was cleaning up. Keen, one of our big players here, the Afreeca Freecs star, I guess, at this point. And we also have the substitution to get to that we saw alluded to earlier.
Yeah, and this is Spo TV's way of showing that there is a substitute. Show the logo, and then show the team, and then put a blue box around the location. It is going to be Rather making his return rather late here back into the LCK.
Hasn't played since, I believe, either the first or maybe just the second week of the season. He only played a couple of series and didn't even finish the series. For a while, they were doing game 1 Rather, game 2 Chovy. I assume because Chovy was young and didn't have a lot of stage experience, so giving him a chance to get used to the bright lights here in the Nexon arena. But now Rather is the one who's been out for so long. Going to play in the second round robin. Usually been known as a utility mid lane player, the Lulu, the Galio, those are his big picks. And solo queue, he's playing Aatrox, but he's not going to get Aatrox here. That'd be insanity. We'll see how he'll do. In the past, when they were in Challenger, he was definitely one of the players that people were critical of. So a big performance from him is needed to justify coming in.
I hope he also has some say in the pick and ban. This draft definitely has to be better than game #1 for Griffin. This time on the blue side. Going to start off, they do not want to give Rakan to Tucson.
Also, taking away the Xayah Rakan flex. The Nocturne hotfixes are in, but they're small, so Nocturne will be banned away. We'll see if Afreeca can just afford to go for the pretty standard Nocturne Talia as the start of the ban phase here. On the red side, with the Aatrox, the expected third ban. The Vladimir was ignored in game 1, even though We have 6-0 Vladimir from Viper and 4-0 from Aiming. I'd be surprised to see it go through picks and bans again.
Griffin really quickly take away that Tom Kench. Didn't have the ability or the flexibility with their bans on the red side. So they say, okay, don't want to let Tucson have that. By the way, Tucson gets his first win on the Tom Kench. He's now 1-4. So he's not without a win on that pick, at least for now.
Very easy game for the Tom Kench last time. I don't even remember him saving anyone, Valdez. In fact, I couldn't really tell you Tucson's contribution to the game, but he still picked up a win. They all count.
You know, he when anyone got even close to danger, he just did it as a precaution. They were so far ahead, they didn't even really need him. Talia gets banned. Once again, you know, some hot fixes, some small nerfs to her, but she's still ridiculous in the jungle. So we will not be seeing her.
He's always available, and Rather has played it before, so that would be a very early pick for him. They're actually
0 seconds, and Shen, with barely any time left over, LENGHT will get his hands on the Shen.
A disagreement. LENGHT's laning phase on the Morgana was pretty weak, even though he was 4-0 coming into that game. They'll give away Swain Morgana if Afreeca won it on the red side, just to get LENGHT the first pick. If you remember the series against KT, KT banned a lot of supports, and LENGHT took a first pick Alistar just to get a comfort champion. That was a 2-0 loss, of course, for the side of Griffin. So while the Shen is a very powerful first pick, with Morgana, Swain, the pick of the jungle is available, not necessarily inspired by the last-second Shen for first pick.
And you're giving over Swain and Kindred. Spirit looked quite good. I mean, he didn't have anyone to really jungle against in terms of a real jungler, so he should have, unless they want to go for the funnel once again here, Griffin, more of a adversary in the jungle. But the Braum here again, an exhaust for Tarzan again, and there it is as well. The Lucian gets locked in. I'm sure this is going to draw a lot of concerned faces from the side of Griffin and their fans, because they're going to try it again when it looked very weak in game one.
And I know a lot of people have this kind of breaking point about Lucian funnels. I actually think it can be very powerful, but what I need to see is winning side lanes with the Lucian funnel. Lucian doesn't have the ability to reposition with the killer instinct, doesn't have engage like some of the other funnel champions, but does a hell of a lot of damage if he gets his mid-game items early, but he needs lanes that either win or provide initiation. He didn't have either of those things in game number one. So Griffin, let's wait and see if they can adjust the second round. The first round, I get why people are concerned, but there's definitely a draft that starts like this for Griffin that they win.
That fan believes in CV Max. We'll see if he can pull his team together with the help of the new drafting coach and make something happen here for their team. Mundo going to be banned down, as well as the Gangplank. Don't want to see Keen on that pick again.
Was something that could safely farm and also could contribute into side lane plays, so don't mind the Gangplank ban. Afreeca will want to flex this Swain for a while. Expected to be Aiming's pick. You would definitely think it would go there, even though Cuvée is playing the top lane Swain pretty reliably, and so is Tal. Meal banned away. Bit of a peculiar one, actually, by the Afreeca Freecs. But they're not 100% sure the funnel's happening. They should be. Shen has been played top lane by Sword, but very, very unlikely to come out in this game. A lot of top lane bans overall.
Gonna take the Alistar here. Definitely is a really good source of hard engage on the side, and also it's Tucson on an engaged champion. Once again, the Alistar, he is 4-3 on the picks so far. See if he can pick up another win.
Please no Cho'Gath is what I ask from this roster. It's going to be Morgana for Rather in the bot lane. He's going to be playing bot lane Morgana from this point onwards. And it's the Cho'Gath again. I'm not a fan, Valdez, of the low initiation here on the side of Griffin. If they can find a way to get a 20-minute Baron, this comp can work. If they can somehow get Drake control, which I guess with Morgana pushing might be possible, then that can win. But going for this comp as a repeat, concerning for me is Keen is looking to go to an old favorite and set up some split push on the side of Afreeca.
Okay, well, he is looking at another pick. We've seen a lot of mediocre Kleds here in the LCK, but looking to take that up on the top side here. Should be Keen. I suppose it could have been Swain up there, but will be Keen up on that Kled, so we'll see if he can do a bit better on that pick.
We did see a top lane Kled struggle against a Mundo a couple of days ago, but this is of course the old time that we used to see Kled come out as a fighter that could beat some of the tanks with all of his shred on the W. Interesting pick, it gives them more engage. And that is always something pretty welcome for Team Comms. The Swain will be so happy they can waddle into the middle of a fight and find a bit more. Griffin, they're trying something here. I think with the Morgana and the Shen bot lane, they should be able to push super hard against Aiming and Tucson. It also means they will have an AP Black Shield, not just a support Black Shield. So it should be more durability for Viper. It's small tweaks. I'm just not a fan of the Cho'Gath in this comp because with very unreliable engage, if you fall behind, it feels like you just get run over.
It is going to be hard to access many members on that side. The Zoe can be so slippery. The Kindred can always lambs or spite to save himself, wait for the follow-up from his team, and the Kled is going to be diving all over the place, and he can hop off of Skarl for a little bit of extra help. I suppose if you're going to try this twice when it looked really mediocre in game number 1, this must be something that is working so much in scrims where they're like, no, we win every single game. That was just a fluke in game 1. Let's try it again here in game 2.
They didn't play any funnel when they played Afreeca Freecs 6 days ago. We'll talk about what this comp does have. There's one area that they could try to abuse when it comes to smite timings, because a funneled Lucian and a Feast is a lot of true damage onto neutrals they could never get near in game number 1.
So guys, the countdown has started here. Game number 2, Griffin versus Afreeca. Let's do it. The roar of the Griffin fans. We'll see if it pulls them through after their 8-1 sprint to first place here in LCK. They have gained a massive following, not just in Korea too. We see you guys over there in Western communities and elsewhere outside of Korea loving this Griffin play so far. Everybody's getting hyped. Everybody wants to see that, but more importantly, some cowbell.
Exactly. I'm happy you got there, Valdez. That's what I was hyped to see. Tucson gives the fans what they want. They want the cowbell. But, you know, Judicious doesn't want to get us burnt out on the cowbell too early.
I love the observer. He's zooming in. He's like, hey, we still got some time.
Waiting for some late vision perhaps here, the Afreeca Freecs. Always good to know which side the funnel starts on, but it's pretty easy to diagnose because you'll see Lucian and the Braum enter from the bottom side of mid when they come to meet the minion wave here.
It must feel so good to have 3 people trying to leash for you when you're funneling yourself.
It's definitely both pressure and also the good feels, because this is very much one damage threat on the side of Griffin. Let's talk about what has changed from game number 1, because you could do one quick scan over the left side and say, same crap that we saw in game 1 that they lost with, and you'd be right and wrong. The Morgana and... well, let's talk about the Morgana, because she's involved in a lot of battling here.
Yeah, really trying to get on top of her there. Level 1 Alistair was Tucson trying to make it work, but no can do.
Morgana Shen is at least going to be a pushing lane, because the Morgana can just put down the puddle and disengage. We always talk about if you take a Morgana in the carry role, very easy to roam for the Shen, because you're not worried about Morgana being turret dived at any point. Has a stopwatch coming online at level 8. Black Shield and the ability to ult under turret means that she can stay in lane. Just maxing the Tormented Soil and pushing will be the Morgana. That means a couple of things. They'll have Shove in the lane. Remember, they had 2 losing side lanes in game number 1 after the Swain just got owned by Aiming in the 2v2. This time the Morgana will push, will be able to shove until maybe level 9 when Swain can have a low enough cooldown to start intercepting the minion wave. But reliably, we will see Morgana pushing, so pushing side lane means less pressure onto the funnel, and theoretically, happier inroads. The side lane turret's definitely going to be healthier than they were in game number 1 when they rolled down pretty easily. The Cho'Gath is still here. That's the part we're surprised to see. But the Cho'Gath does give them Feast and also an over-leveled smite from Viper because he's being funneled. So if with a winning side lane, they can actually take some Drakes, actually control the jungle. There is a way to make this draft work. It's still pretty narrow, though. That's the surprise, is it's a pretty narrow win condition. If things start to go bad, they just go really bad.
Yeah, you may look towards other teams who maybe are struggling to play a straight-up game and they want to do something a little bit cheesy, a little bit different to go for this strategy. Griffin, they've shown that they can win straight up against the best of the best in the world even here in Korea, but they decide anyway that no, we're going to go for this strategy. Now again, as you've been highlighting, you need to get ahead for it to work. When it's behind, it looks pretty trash. So we'll see if they can do that here in this game. Another good thing, at least for them to start off the game, is that they got both scuttles, so they denied that first mark away from Spirit this time around. And
definitely just to a little bit more specific, if this particular version of the funnel falls behind, it definitely does look poor. Yeah. There are other funnels that can afford to fall behind, but the low initiation here is the problem. Is Spirit waiting to show himself.
Looking for it, he does get the leash, but the very respectful flash from Sword, he did see Spirit coming in on the ward. That is in that brush. You can see that the mark was on the top lane, was on to Sword. He wanted to get that gank early at level 4 with red buff. Isn't going to happen, though, as Sword is just so respectful.
I mean, he's also pretty boned because right now the wave is pushing in. He might just put more points into his queue apart from the one because, unfortunately, he hasn't got a jungler coming to help him, and Rumble and Cho'Gath always had that same problem of, if I can freely overextend, laning phase is pretty powerful. In this scenario, Keen's just going to allow it to push in and freeze it outside turret, and there's nobody to come help the Cho'Gath, so he's just going to lose CS.
Yeah.
Outside of pushing with his Q or trying to clip the minions at the side.
It is so difficult to deal with this when the lane gets into this position. That's part of the reason why that gank was perfectly timed, right? Waited for the Cho'Gath to try to push it into turret, and then they say, okay, let's go now, get his flash. And Sword, he's just sitting here, he's farming with his Q, doing nothing.
And we've all played solo queue games either as a top laner or with a top laner who says, I need a gank, I can't do anything, I need a gank, and it starts spam pinging, it's very annoying. This is, this is not what is actually happening from the Cho'Gath. This is the scenario where the Cho'Gath says, I actually can't do anything about my lane without dying. And unfortunately, he has no jungler to come help him. He's just boned in the top side. So, sucks to be Sword is kind of the summary of my point.
Yeah, it means that he will be getting pretty far behind when it comes to the CS numbers and the farm. You'll notice that Keen, he has no reason to push in. Right, he's not looking to get an early turret against the Cho'Gath. He's just denying as much CS as possible. Might just be seeing the Cho'Gath on only Righteous Glory at 25 minutes again.
Maybe Braum has to come top lane and just help push with a couple of Relic Shield stacks because the freeze is going to be forever if Keen can allow it to be. He doesn't even need to shop. He's only against a Glacial Shroud, so while he'd love to shop, so few options for Sword. And if Kindred is never shown on a ward or never ganks, this is just the life forever of Sword.
Well, he does have the lane pushing in his direction now. There were a ton of range minions that were helping push the wave towards Sword, but took some of them out with the Q. Wanted to get some of that farm, so this may be the moment where he finally gets out underneath the grasp of Keen.
Well, it's been at a pretty significant cost, and the funnel is usually at some level of cost, but this is getting to not like this territory pretty early as Sword says, I might be turret dive now as we get, we get a bit of skin spotlights going on there. Nice.
Oh, look at that. That's so annoying, too. Here we go. Going to be a second teleport committed to by, looks like Tucson, actually, but the follow-up teleport coming in from Griffin, trying to get on top of this Cal, but he is going to have to flash away. In comes Rather. He's going to miss the binding. Very unfortunate. Had he landed that onto Tucson on the Cal, they probably would have killed him.
And this is going to allow Swain to push in. They'll lose some lane pressure. Bot side, long walk for the Morgana. Maybe that was one person too many. Going to top side. Understand what Griffin were trying to pull off, but rather not known for his mechanics. Very much a shot calling player, very much a utility mid laner. Not able to pull off the flash means that they lose out on a bit of momentum here, does Griffin.
Kind of awkward. They do at least save Sword's life so that he can sit here 30 CS behind at 7 minutes. We'll see if Afreeca and Keen can try to set up that freeze once again, but we notice that Spirit level 6 is pathing down towards the south side of the map, bottom side here, so going to be a little bit harder. You were mentioning Braum going up towards the top side. Looks like he actually has joined up here.
Right now seems to be for a counter gank. Not going to be seeing the Kindred play any attention here, and I believe revealed, trying to help Sword fully push in. Well, Keen is having a happy game. The moment you get to teleport onto a minion under the enemy turret at 6 minutes, you know things are going pretty well. Mark picked up by the Kindred, I believe his first mark.
Yep.
But the Infernal Drake off the backside, a nice bonus. And remember, we mentioned that with these adaptations from Griffin, while it was the soul of the comp from game number 1, we wanted to see them actually use the Morgana lane pressure to get some Drakes, to use their smites. We're not going to see that for the first Drake, and it's something they need to address to make this draft work.
Yeah. Infernal Drake going to be really nice there for Afreeca. We do have the completed jungle item and the completed level 2 boots out of Viper here. It's going to be very fed, as we all do expect once again. Spirit definitely going to be a little bit less happy on the Kindred this time around. Only 1 mark. See if he can make it work.
It's the RNG nature of Kindred that we always talk about when it works in her benefit, but this is definitely one of the ones where a bit of lean timing and also the double scuttle at the start of the game did put a pretty big pause on that. Again, 4's the magic number. Everything after that is kind of a bonus. So if you can get to 4 before the action starts, then he'll be just pretty content, all things considered. Watching Viper power farm, rush around, and in game 1, I looked at it and I said, well, even if he gets all of his items, I don't really see how the fights work. I don't see how Griffin wins. They have more this time. Mentioned how in game number 1, Viper had item timings where he'd have to initiate and also be able to put out damage and have to deal with enemy threat. Speaking of enemy threat.
Okay, jumping in here is level 6 Tucson. Doesn't commit to any ultimates or anything like that. Just trying to scare them a little bit.
Rather will have a more significant impact on the side of Griffin than Chovy could in game 1 because of the Morgana. Either Viper goes in with a 600 magic damage shield and can do some sick ice skating, or we see an AP Morgana flash and ult, and at least that is also going to be some level of relevance in a fight, some level of control. So I think it's going to be more reliable around Rather, but could still be the same result, Valdez. This might be a 2-0 to Afreeca if we don't see Griffin pick up the pace soon.
See Spirit and Kuro coming down here into the bottom lane. They want to set up this 4v2. Tucson waiting on it, is tanking that turret, but Lehans with the dodge circle buying so much time. The TP comes in, but it is not enough. They take out the Shen. They take out Rather too, and that is going to be 2-0 already to Afreeca.
Usually impossible to turret dive, but they pull it off. They have the stopwatch there to mean the Alistar doesn't go down. However, mid lane turret may just go down for this. 2 kills for a turret, usually you'll take the kills. But Viper and Tarzan do spare the blushes a little bit when it comes to first break.
Yeah, they're at least able to get that. The TP was coming in from Sword, probably got interrupted or just decided, hey, they're dead, I'll just cancel it. As there's no point for him to go in there. So let's take a look at the replay and how this went down.
It was really well coordinated by Afreeca. They have all their members bot lane. They're now spotted, so they knew it was a gank, but Black Shield is on cooldown very early. Tucson misses his stuff, but it doesn't matter because Spirit is a damage jungler. Kindred is so different against these funnel comps and the tank junglers who look frustrated in the first weeks of the season. They pull out the damage, they turret dive. It ends up being a turret and 2 kills for the first brick in mid lane. Lucian may be getting his item timings even earlier, but how much will it matter when this game hits 20 minutes?
Yeah. The Alistar with stopwatch. We know we talk about this stopwatch meta, but it's part of the reason why they picked that Alistar at the 4th place position in the draft on the red side. It's just one of the best divers as well. You know, you get that Kindred, you get the Zoe who can roam on down, the long-range trouble bubbles. It makes diving that bottom lane so easy for the Afreeca Freecs.
And it shows how flexible the options are, because if Tahm Kench was available, they would have just taken Tahm Kench and played it differently. Tahm Kench was down, was banned away, blue side ban from Griffin. They take Alistar, and that means they can be aggressive. Alistar plus stopwatch equals successful turret dive on one of the most slippery duo lanes it could be. Morgana Shen is very slippery. They still get the clean double kill. Nice adaptations from Afreeca. Still waiting to see if the small adaptations Griffin made will actually make inroads on their game in game 2.
Yeah. You notice a lot of the focus from Griffin is up towards the Rift Herald this time around. On the blue side, it's going to be a lot easier to try to protect that objective. The Spirit is not just going to walk on in and steal it for free. It's probably going to have to jump the wall and clear out all the vision that we do see, including the Scuttle Crab there from Griffin so far. So we'll see if he can sneak that one away. At the very least, it will be delayed. Should be favored to go over towards Afreeca, but we'll see if he does pick that up.
So for Griffin, how do you win this game? Easiest way, Baron at 20 minutes. We've seen plenty of teams not put down vision around Baron at 20 minutes and then be surprised when the enemy team with a funnel is able to solo it down so damn fast. They have just the most secure on Baron you could ever ask for, with the Feast being around 1,200 damage probably at 20 minutes, and also an over-leveled smite from Viper. So that's one of the easiest ways to actually push forward. Doesn't have to be a steal.
Oh boy.
Here's Viper.
No turret here. Kuro going to have to blow his own flash, as well as the TP coming on in here from aiming. So kind of an awkward spot. That's a nice little bonus benefit over to Griffin.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. That was just, oh wait, we don't have a turret crap, was the thought process there from Afreeca. Don't plug and play a turret being down this early in the mid lane. So straight up mistake. May not be as costly as the only straight up mistake in game number 1 where they gave away the Baron, but still something to work on from the side of Afreeca, who are prized for being a very well-drilled team with all the practice they invest in. Rather doesn't have a turret, but he's still Morgana, so going to be relatively safe on these missions.
There was one thing I wanted to mention earlier. The vision line that you were talking about in game 1 from Afreeca was stellar, and it was here early on in the game. They had 4 control wards down at the bottom side before they did go for the gank, and look at how it switches up depending on the objective. Before they wanted to go to the bottom side, take out the turret and get the gank, but now they're thinking about the Rift Herald, and there are 3 control wards up towards the top side. The 4th one was down there in the tri-brush on the bottom side, but you can see how Afreeca really likes to make the vision work for them.
And we should explain to the audience that because everyone on Griffin is on a short leash, they don't have a true jungler who can roam around and clear wards. They have someone who is min-maxing farm by going from the shortest distance between anything he can kill to pick up minions. There's actually not a lot of time to put down control wards or clear control wards. So control wards against a funnel comp are the most likely to stick compared to any other comp. So it's not a surprise that Afreeca have more control wards down at a moment. It is a treat to see where they're putting it, moving it like you mentioned, a triangle topside just to say, now we can see Kled overextend with almost no cost, and now we can also set up around Rift Herald. But the Rift Herald's this time being started by Griffin. So there's a couple of recalls from Afreeca. Are they going to give this up, or are they going to contest it? Love to see a bit of a skirmish, but for now, looking like it might not happen.
Looks like they're just giving it up. Talking about vision, so much vision in the red side jungle by Griffin. They have 4 or so wards up there. They cleaned out all the vision at the Rift Heralds and even started it on top of a control ward. But Afreeca, without the Zoe Flash, without Aiming's teleport, I suppose they just say, we don't want to fight you right now. Rift Herald is not a big enough objective for us to potentially lose a team fight at this point in the game.
But it is also the 3-minute 30 preview of when that Baron spawns, look at Blade the Ruin King and a Cho'Gath secure, and be very worried if you're Afreeca Freecs. So hopefully that will be, if they even needed it, a reminder of what can happen from the side of Griffin. Spirit and Tucson walking up. Seeing on the bot side here, Cho'Gath just slowly picking up farm. A 40 CS lead, as you expected after the early game for the Kled.
Our resident Lucian sitting at 262 CS. Very, very far ahead of everyone else. We'll see if he does pick up a QSS this time around. It's definitely very useful against the Zoe Swing composition.
I don't know. If you have Morgana, an AP Morgana, and a Shen, and a Braum, and you're taking QSS, it just seems like the wrong move. I think you need the damage as fast as possible. You now have a Black Shield that won't be popped instantly. It has a lot more defensive utility around it. We always talk about that QSS tax, but there's no Skarner or Malzahar, and you have all the utility. I think you need to hit hard and fast in the mid game.
Yeah.
Lucian in the late game is good, but he's not Kai'Sa. So actually take the most when he's strong.
Yeah, I would agree. Decided he needed it in game number 1. I think this will definitely open up his build. Speaking of opening up, actually Aiming trying to go 1v2 again. He's feeling it tonight, especially after the way the early game went in game number 1. Speaking of which, Sword might be feeling it here. 3-on-1. He is the Cho'Gath, and he is super tanky. But here's Shen, who may have just stood united into his death. They're thinking about a turret dive here, but the rest of Griffin is rolling in. Keen going way too deep in here. The taunt is going to land. Lamb's Respite, though, is perfect there from Spirit. They knock him out, and Tucson gets the follow-up engage. It is perfect, and the double kill over to the side of the Zoe. Afreeca looked like they went too deep. They were just baiting Griffin into it.
There were so many layers of mistake to start this first from Afreeca, but the turnaround by the end, the ending by Tucson was so smart, headbutting the Braum out of the Lamb's Respite so they got the first kill, and then having the turnaround onto the rest of the members. Calamity of errors to start the action, but you have to say when the action was thick and fast, Afreeca Freecs was better.
Unbelievable, just trying to make it work. You mentioned the mistakes that started the play.
Sword just walks up to no vision and is surprised to find 3 people. A solo mistake from Sword, should not do this. From there, nice interruption by aiming. So a mistake in terms of the teleport by Rather. And then they go for the turret dive, and this is too aggressive. This is very risky, given that Griffin can react. But the turnaround here, first on the flash Lamb's Respite from Spirit, beautifully done. And then also headbutting out Tarzan, getting the first kill. This is really well done by Tucson to mop up a calamity of errors on both sides.
Tucson and Spirit going hand in hand, holding hands, and holding the rest of Afreeca. Just keeping them above water here, just making them not pay for their mistakes. The headbutt into the flash 2-person pulverized, by the way, which made the follow-up on that fight even better.
And this is why I hyped up Spirit's Kindred. When this champion was first released years ago, Spirit played an ungodly amount of Kindred. I'm talking about 60, 70, 80 games in a week and kept up his Kindred. He was a player people looked to. Loved the Hurricane build back in the day when the marks were very easy to get. You could just Hurricane down multiple people. He knows his ranges. We've seen the failed Flash Lamb's Respite from multiple players in the LCK already. When it comes to Spirit, he knows his Kindred ranges.
He's having a beast of a game so far. Griffin, though, this time around, even after the festivities of that fight, they do have the Rift Herald. They aren't that far behind as compared to game number 1, so they're trying to follow this up. Unfortunately, the Rift Herald usage, it was about to run out. They decided to just get 1 charge in the top side.
And you know what they want? They want to win. But do you know what they really want as a smaller thing? They would love a kill, Valdez. They've had none in the entire series, and we're 21 minutes into game 2.
It felt almost free when they saw Keen dive in the turret. They're like, really? I know you're playing Kled, but that's, you know, are you trying to give us a kill? And then Spirit just says, no. You cannot kill my younger brother. I will take you down. Speaking of Spirit, running forward, looking for Viper here.
We're rolling.
Lead charge coming into the back line. There's the engage from Tucson. He's going to knock 2 of them off, and they get the Lucian. And that means the Braum will go down 2. And Sword with nowhere to go is just going to awkwardly feast Kuro. And that's 3 more kills to Afreeca.
And that's what the charge can do. There's no way to get the Lucian out, even with the utility standing next to him. You can be decisive. You can snowball a lead. And they want a Baron.
Should be just about as free as you'd like it at this point. The Morgana and the Shen can do absolutely nothing. And a couple of mistakes and fantastic plays out of Afreeca to pull it back here means that still no kills for Griffin. And they might be looking down the barrel of another 0-2 against a strong team.
I don't know if I can ever remember a series, even a 2-0 series, where the enemy team didn't get a single kill in a loss, Valdez, but we're definitely setting up for one like that. Best thing about the charge is that even my boy Tucson can get in there quickly. He doesn't need Ghost. He's got the assist from the Kled. They dive in. They get all the kills. Sword thinks he's teleporting in as a tank. Nope. It's just making a donation to the enemy team. Everyone, gap closes, great collapse, and how about a second Inferno for Afreeca Freecs?
You can tell that Afreeca is really feeling it, even just the little things, right? Tucson's play, tanking all the turret shots as they dive, even after his ultimate times out. Just everybody moving as a squad, and Afreeca looking so good tonight. And people are going to point back to the series and say, well, Griffin, you know, they're so hyped up, but Afreeca, the more practiced and veteran team here, going to take them down in a very similar fashion to the way that KT took them down in that 0-2.
Let's assume Griffin lose 2-0, looking very likely. The hot takes will be abound, right? Everyone has a hot take, like, lol, Griffin overrated.
All these Lucian funnel.
Exactly. They're going to talk about the draft and say what a fail. I think all the hot takes, it's too early. This team will be 8-2. There's still going to be the top of their standings team in Korea, but it's also too early to pronounce them as the best team in Korea because, again, they've only played everyone once, and now they're losing to a repeat opponent. The only thing I think you should take away is a more general point. They're facing the best funnel team in Korea, and they went funnel against them out of nowhere. That is what I think should be criticized. They do it twice in a row as well. This is the one team you do think knows everything in and out about funnel, and I think that decision is something I look at and say, what are you trying to prove? You could have just gone standard either of the games.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Griffin. After today, there's a lot to discuss, and I think we're going to have to shelve this Funnolution, or at least play a lot more scrims and be ready for it the next time
Go
around.
funnel against MVP. If this is the last game of the season, and they just play funnel because they don't want to show a strategy, sure. But we're in the middle of the season. They still have so much to play. The timing is what's so interesting to consider, and it's why we have to watch every Griffin series in the second round robin, think about what happened before, and see if we can see teams adapt their own play, having played this team before, and actually find some wins. When I was thinking about it before today, I was thinking 6-3 for Griffin in the second round robin because teams will adapt and beat them. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be even worse than that scoreline.
Yeah, as you mentioned, we shouldn't call stuff too early, but it's definitely not the way you want to start this round. But speaking of which, trying to charge on the backline, he lands straight onto Viper, says, hello, I'm playing Kled this time around. Nice engaged follow-up from Tushin. Not able to get any kills just yet, but Sword is going to get low before he can even get it in there. The tethers here from Rather are going to stun 3 people, and they do get the Alistair down here. Tarzan still alive, as is Viper, and Afreeca just going to back off and take the inhibitor.
First kill of the series comes 24 minutes into game number 2 from the side of Griffin. If you bet on that one, you're making a lot of money today, that's for sure. You see Afreeca Freecs back away. They still were able to take down the primary objective in taking that bot lane inhibitor. Watch the replay here. They roll in, and there's not enough gold onto either Viper or the members of Griffin. Very, very easy for them to take the turret, and then when they start focusing on members, that's going to go well for Afreeca as well.
Bit of a sloppy fight overall. A lot of different damage going in many different directions towards the Cho'Gath, Tarzan surviving forever, Viper having enough of a front line, some members of Afreeca not fully committing, going for the inhibitors, stuff like that. But as you mentioned, I mean, Afreeca just way too far ahead at this point in the game. Let's take a look at the damage in that last one. Looks like the Lucian was actually able to do some with all those items they're funneling into him.
But some is not enough. They need to be able to find ascendancy in fights, especially when the fight is happening in their base at 25 minutes. But we had our reservations about the draw. I said it was a little bit better, but they needed to get the Drakes. They needed to get ahead. It didn't happen again, Valdez, and that's why we're in this scenario where another major mistake by Griffin, game's over.
Griffin coming off the high of round 1. There was the news that they received the extra bonuses. Very well deserved. It's really hard to come into LCK as a challenger team and just smash face against everyone that wasn't KT. Definitely deserved, but a bit of a bittersweet feeling now as they've been totally dominated by another strong team here in the LCK. I think they'll just have to go back to work and practice a little bit more. Again, this still is a very young and a very new team. We'll see if they can pull it back here.
Again, the point we'll get to is it's not the time for hard judgments for or against Griffin. They played funnel twice against Afreeca. I think that was the poor decision. But everything else is still up in the air. The future is still ready to be written as, whoa! He died to the W!
That might have been the first time it looked that awkward and obvious. We definitely have people die to W before, but it was the Zoe Paddlestar into him walking on the trouble bubble, which makes him stand still, funnily enough. Nice follow-up engage here as the rest of Griffin, Viper in the background, just trying to culling and get a high damage number, because that's all he is going to get in both of these games. Trying to take out aiming now, but gets hit by that trouble bubble. They still have Lamb's Respite, by the way, just in case. Here comes the follow-up from Lehans. Gets a nice taunt. Tarzan gonna get low, though, on the back line. Keen able to do it. Spirit 2 is very fed. And Sleep comes in on the Viper. He still wants to get a kill, but he will be denied. Only 2 kills in the whole series for Griffin, and a very clean 2-0 from Afreeca.
Fantastic series from the Afreeca Freecs. Multiple members playing great. Their macro was immaculate. apart from one Baron steal, they did the right thing in basically every scenario. And you could also see in game number 2, Keen steamrolled Sword in the top lane. Sword has been someone who's looked good this season, but also is probably the weakest link when it comes to individual play. I think the Cho'Gath draft didn't do him any favors either. Keen was able to run over him. We've seen Keen denied target banned, forced onto Mundo, and other picks where he doesn't have lane supremacy. When he has the lane supremacy, Keen has delivered 9 times out of 10.
That he has. That young player up in the top side for Afreeca is not going to disappoint us tonight, but disappointing looks on the faces of Griffin. Across the board, the draft, the play was okay. You know, it's kind of just the position they found themselves in. And it definitely felt like Afreeca was in total control of both games the entire time. So a lot to go back to, a lot to learn from this series. You know, again, this is a very young team. They have a lot of learning and practice yet to do. I think having a couple of losses like this along the way isn't even that bad.
And the coaching staff have a lot to answer for. 2 funnels in a row, very similar funnels, had narrow win conditions, but the team couldn't hit against a team as good as the Afreeca Freecs. So the why of that decision will be very interesting. Now if they come out in a couple of days and lose standard, then you start getting very worried. But still, the decision to run funnel against the best funnel team with a narrow funnel win condition, I realize we're saying funnel a lot of times, these are the things that I think of and I say, they should be kind of processing all this information better than they actually did. We're watching the replays here of some very clean moments on the side of Afreeca. This is when everyone decided to pack up and come top side. This allowed the Swain to get a lot more farm in the bot lane. Flash play from Rather. Imagine Chovy will be coming back next time, but then we got moments like this where they were able to understand that there was very little return damage going to come through from Shen Morgana. They're even able to kill a Morgana. Who thought it was possible in the carry role? And fun mechanics at the end of this one, the highlights of what was a very one-sided game number 2, and even more importantly, a very one-sided series.
Yeah, this is definitely the replay you look at and you say, hey, Afreeca, they were taking Griffin very seriously tonight. The mechanics were so on point. The flash slams despite the headbutt out, and then the flash pulverize onto 2, especially onto Viper, means that Tucson and Spirit win the fight and follow up on Keen.
And Afreeca Freecs snap their losing streak of 2 and are able to get back to the winning round and join a lot of teams at 7. Remember, Griffin, for all their success, it's now going to be 8-2. They're not 2 series ahead anymore. At the top of the table, can be joined at 8 wins very shortly. By the end, you can roll in, doesn't matter how it starts. We knew how it was going to finish, as Griffin just ran away in different directions, hoping against hope that the game could go longer.
Aiming, showing how the Swain play is done. You flash into the face of the Lucian and say, I dare you to do damage to anyone else, or you might just die to me. This is kind of the funny follow-up. Rather's like, here, take my life.
And then he died to a W. How embarrassing. Not even
he was
support.
walking to the right, saw the trouble bubble coming in. He's like, hey, let me go to the left and step on the trouble bubble so that I die.
Let the record show that we would have preferred Chovy in game number 2.
Yes,
but if you're playing Morgana, it's probably fine, whichever one plays, because theoretically, not too much to do apart from push as the bot lane Morgana. Not too much for Afreeca to do and say, well, they're playing funnel twice. We're really good at funnel. We're really good against funnel. Great performance by Spirit, by Tucson. Even Keen was able to run over in game number 2. You don't really learn much about Afreeca from this series, except they look sharp. They're certainly not tilted after 2 losses in a row. And the Griffin fans will say, well, it was just the funnel comp, but I think there's more going on that needs to be examined on the side of Griffin, because strategically, this is a big loss for me, for Griffin.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, think about what we were talking about in the beginning, the focus for Griffin on top of Tarzan. They play him on Braum 2 games in a row. He's not able to carry from the jungle. He just sits there and ults and tries to help Viper, their best player, albeit, but not able to really do much on the Braum here. Let's take a look at the MVP. Will be Spirit this time around. Did a lot of work on that Kindred 2 games in a row, I would argue. But in this one, he gets 100% kill participation. 3-0-9, does not die, and deserves that MVP this time around.
He needed that little flashy moment to up his stock a little bit more, but you're right. 2 great games on the Kindred, and if you're facing Afreeca Freecs, you better have a plan to deal with Spirit's Kindred. He's one of the best.
So guys, I'm going to hand it over to Ji-Sun to help out with the translation of this Afreeca MVP interview.
감사합니다.
Congratulations on your victory.
정말 잘.
World-class top laner. You were really
오늘
good.
경기를 상대적으로 팬들 입장에서 지켜봤을 때 사실 일주일도 안 됐거든요. 지난번 경기가.
Well, you know, it
이거
has
뭐
been only
그리핀에게도
6 days
어렵겠다.
after
그나마
Griffin
지난
took you guys
경기
down
아프리카
last
프릭스가
time.
그다음에 오늘 경기 쉽지 않을 거야. 이런
So a lot of
예상이
fans were
많았어요.
quite worried
그런
for today's
상황에서
series.
강하게 오늘 뭐 경기를 준비하는 모습들이 좀 인상 깊었었는데 어떻습니까 오늘
So how was today's matchup?
그리핀이었는데요.
최근에 사실 이렇게 연패를 하다 보니까 팀 분위기가
Well, going through this losing streak,
그래서
yeah, we
다 같이
went to a little bit of depression, so we just wanted to cheer up a little bit, and it's really relieving that we picked up the victory today.
이제 좀 2연패하면서 그것도 좀 처참한 경기력으로 2연패를 했잖아요.
You know, 2 consecutive losses was really something really bad for us, so we were kind of focusing on our performance, and I think it really worked out today.
지난 경기는 뭐 아프리카 프릭스 선수들도 좀 답답한 느낌을 좀 받았겠습니다만 사실 아프리카 프릭스를 좀 연구하는 공략을 준비하고 있는 대상대 팀들 입장에서는 좀 약간 안심을 줬었거든요. 근데
Well,
오늘 경기는
I know that you guys have been underperforming recently, but today
그냥 뭐
you
다른
just
숫자에서
kind
보신
of
것처럼
ruled
뭐
the whole
가능성
entire
어느 정도
series.
언급해드렸는데 아예 그런 것도 없었거든요. 뭐 내부에서도 그런 분위기였어요.
It was almost like a
그런
perfect
걸
game
조심하자는 얘기 좀
for
나왔어요.
both sets.
아무래도 이제 이제
You know,
들어갈 때는 이제 오늘 열심히 해서
Going into the gaming
그냥
booth, we always go like,
최선 목표는 일단 기본기를 지켜서 다음
let's just
대회
let's just focus on our like performance and try not to lose. But you know, we picked up the victory in the end, so I think it's really relieving.
분위기 만드는 거 진짜 중요할 테니까. 1세트 그런데 완전 다 좋았는데 완전 다 좋았는데.
Well, so the first game was almost perfect, but Chogas kind of stole your Baron, right?
뛰어든 장면이요?
네.
기억이 안 나네요.
Well, I don't really remember.
미안해요. 봐야 되거든요.
I'm so sorry, but we have to check out the highlights.
보여주세요.
So let's see the clip.
네, 사실 그 장면 같은 경우는 요건 되게 시야가 좀 어느 정도 준비하고 치셨던 장면 같은데. 네.
할 말이 없네요, 제가.
Well, I have nothing to say.
좀 반성을 해야 되는 부분인 것 같고.
I think I have to repair on this.
보여주기래. 근데 이거는 뭐 사실 초가스가 잘한 거지. 이 부분에 대해서는 뭐 그런 생각은 안 들었을 것 같은데요.
아니요, 알고 있었는데.
Well, I knew that he was waiting to steal the Baron, but it was my fault.
이 얘기를 듣자고 한 건 아니었어요. 이 얘기를 듣자고 한 건 아니었는데.
Well, we were not actually asking for an apology, but we're feeling super sorry for you.
하지만 이게 바탕이 돼서 2세트 경기가 잘 풀렸으니까 그럼 1세트 좀 더 말씀을 드리면 사실 기인 선수가 MVP를 얻게 된 가장 좋은 장면 중에
So
하나가
speaking about the first game,
하나가 마지막에 막 갱플렉 성장한 거
in the last team fight, you know,
나 이만큼 성장했는데
you did a lot of damage on your GP,
1대3 상황에서 상대편 본지만
and you almost played 1v3 by yourself.
그냥 이제 저희 뒤에 팀원들이 좀 힘들어하길래 앞에서
I saw my teammates like suffering in the backline, so I was trying to take the aggro, but I think it just ended up looking well.
그 장면 같은 경우는 사실상 뭐 단순하게 그냥 뭐 버텨주는 정도가 아니라 셋 다 막 갈
Well,
직전까지 갔었거든요.
you were not just taking the aggro. Actually, you were just like fighting against 3 players.
이 장면 이때는 약간 저희 출발이 좀 애매했거든요. 이러다가 갑자기 화약을 터뜨리면서 길이 여기서 타잔 바이퍼
So you were fighting against Tarzan, Viper, and Lians by yourself.
너무 위험해 보이는 거예요.
Well, I think aiming was in a bad position, so I just want to go deep inside to protect him, but I think it ended up all right.
또 몰려오는 이 장면 때문에 실질적으로 아프리카가 기세가 더 올라왔던 장면은 바로 이 장면이 아닐까라는 생각이 들어요. 좀 잠잠하지만 좀 긴 호흡의 1세트.
So I think Afreeca showed their performance about team fights at that moment.
있었던 것 같습니다. 그래서 당연히 또 MVP를 또 기인 선수가 받게 됐는데 고장기 오늘 혹시 1세트 보면서 뭔가
Any questions from the Korean casters?
저는 이제 기인 선수한테
네.
1경기도 그렇고 2경기 포함해서 바이퍼의
So,
루시안을 좀 밀착막
Other, I think you have been like taking all the aggro from Viper's Lucian. So is that your own plan or is that like team strategy?
사실 그것 때문에 바이퍼가 딜을 좀 못하는 장면이 많이 나왔었잖아요.
I think Viper had hard time facing Kiin.
몰아주기 조합에 대한 생각들이 계속해서 엇갈리고 있습니다. 아마 이제 그 부분에서 이제 그리핀이 또 선택하는 연유.
Yeah, a lot of people are just doubting about the funnel composition. So what are your comments about that?
몰아주기다 보니까 이제 루시안만 성장이 월등히 높아서 이제
Yeah, because it was ADC funneling composition. So yeah, my only role was to take the aggro from the AD carry.
어떻습니까? 어떻게 보면 2세트 뱀픽에서 또 유사하게 어떻게 보면 더 세게 들어왔잖아요.
네.
거기에 대해서는 어떤 식으로 팀
And
메이커를
Griffin kind of went with similar composition in the game too.
상대방 바텀 듀오가 주도권이 있는 픽이었단 말이에요.
네.
그래가지고
Well, compared to
말게임은
first game, I think they had laning priority in the second set in the bot lane, so we had to kind of focus a little bit more.
네, 아무래도 그 바텀 지역에 대한 그 모르가나에 대한 그런 장면들도 말씀해 주셨는데 일단 몰아주기에 대해서는 어떻게 생각하세요?
Then what are your thoughts about the funnel
팀
composition?
생각 아니어도 돼요. 그냥 본인 생각으로.
Your own
이
thoughts,
몰아주기
maybe.
조합은 어떻게 생각하는 거예요?
일단 제 생각에 몰아주기는 정말 좋은 조합인데
I think
네.
funnel comp is good,
제가 너무 던져.
but my team doesn't let me do it. Maybe I'm just throwing all the time, so I'm a little bit sad for that.
좀 폼이 많이 올라오고.
But well, maybe later if I perform better, I might get the chance to be the one who gets funneled.
왜냐면 2세트 양이한 시절 그 타이밍이 진짜 엄청 좋았잖아요.
So speaking of the game 2,
그것도
well, your Lamb's Respite did a lot of work in game 2.
긴 선수 이제 안쪽으로 들어가면서 전투를 펼쳤었는데 좀 맛을 봤었죠. 이때는 좀 욕심도 났잖아요, 긴 선수. 그렇죠?
이때 제가 사실 원래 던진 거였는데 이제
Well, it was my
잘
big
커버해서
throw at that
그래요.
moment, but I think it was a great cover play from Spirit.
너무 이제
I actually really freaked out at that moment, but he super saved me. I mean, like, you got me in your back.
이러면서 키는 뒤쪽으로 빠졌고 여기서 알리스가 상대편을 밀어주면서 완전히 막 전투 기가 막혔잖아요, 여기서는요.
네.
이게는 역시 이게 팀 플레이라는 걸
So,
마치 보여주는 듯한
great team play from Afreeca
이
Freecs.
정도 타이밍 한번 보여주면 몰아주기 저 한번 가도 될 것 같은데.
I think you do deserve a funnel comp.
더 해야 시켜주지 않을까 싶네요.
도장 하나
Well, if I
찍어야죠.
make that kind of super play for 10 times, maybe they will let me play funnel comp.
그리고 나 그 기인의 솔로 킬에 관련된 말씀을 안 드릴 수가 없어요.
And we want to talk about your solo kills, Keen.
아니요 몇 번 했는지는 자세히 모르죠.
Well, I don't know how many solo kills I did exactly.
더 많이 한 것 같은데.
미안해요.
Well, but 9 times I thought I did a little bit more than that.
2위가 이제 하루 선수 7번, 그리고 3위가 칸 선수.
Well, you are on the first place.
단독 1위 9회를 할 정도로 지금 뭐 사실상 다리우스나 이렇게 완전 공격적인 거 주면 완전 안 된다는
So
생각들이
we
다른
can say
팀들에도
you are
분명해요.
kind of
저게 무슨 너프가 되든
always
아무
dominant in top
상관없이
lane.
뭐 이런 느낌들이 지금 굉장히 많이 나왔거든요. 여기에 대해서는 어떻게 생각해요?
What are your thoughts about that?
이제 탱커만 많이 했거든요 요즘 사실.
Well, I've been
근데
playing
좀
tank champions a lot.
공격적인 챔피언 하다 보니까 이제
But
좀
if I get to play
하나
aggressive
이런 식으로
champs,
하다 보니까 계속 솔로 킬이 좀 많이
yeah, I
나오는 것
think I
같아요.
get more ability to make solo kills in the laning phase.
그러니까 묘한 표정을 짓더라고요. 그게 무슨 느낌이었어요?
내 다리우스가 이 정도인가?
Well, when they banned out my Darius, I was feeling a little bit
두
satisfied.
번째 세트도 뭐 전반적으로 좋았던 것 같은데 고장디오.
네, 저는 기인 선수에게 궁금한 게
So my question is
궁금한데
to Keen.
네.
준비된 게 없는데 네, 기인 선수한테 물어보면 안 될까요?
스피릿 나중에 장의하고.
네네.
네, 먼저
So
해봐요.
my question for Keen is,
수입 사안이 좀 조금씩 들어오고 있어요.
after the Rift rivals, you know, some kind of new metas are coming into LCK, especially Kled.
기인 선수의 개인적인
Then what are thoughts about Kled?
일 수도 있고 미드는 전패예요 지금까지. 탑은 아니거든요.
Is it an A-tier
클레드는
champion?
좀 이제 조합이 많이 타는 챔피언 같아요. 이제 라인전은
Well,
이제
I think it really relies a lot on the whole team composition, you know?
이제 조합 맞춰서 쓰면 엄청 괜찮은 챔피언이다.
So I think you need a good team comp to use Kled.
네.
해봤어요. 그렇죠? 그러면 다음은 우리 장은
What about you, MC?
두 번 다 이제 조이 킨드레드를 활용을 했었잖아요. 그리고 사실
So Afreeca played
몰아주긴 거안 보고
Zoe and
뽑았어요.
Kindred
그냥
for
좋다고
2
생각하고 뽑은 것 같아요.
games in
근데
a row.
그 듀오가 그래서 킨드레드는 확실히 요즘 LCK에서
And I can say Kindred is an A-tier
A-tier
champion in LCK, so I want to know the reason why.
이런 평이 있었는데 요즘 그냥 선픽 하니까요.
You know, most of the team just blind
킨드레드가
picked
좋은
Kindred in
이유는
jungle.
그냥 재미있기 때문에 선수들이 좋아해서가 아닐까요?
Well, I think maybe it's really fun to play.
플레이하는 데 있어서 제일 재밌거든요.
So I think that's the reason why the
그래서
players
챔프의
prefer
성능이
to play in
어떻든
jungle.
킨드레드 하고 싶은데 하면은 이제 좀 어필이 되는 거죠.
야 이게 노련하게 답을 피해가는 일단은 재미만으로 충분히 킨드레드 뭔가 줄 수 있는데 가지고 있는 능력치는 우리 팀 내 비밀이기 때문에 주지 않겠다 이런 얘기들.
Maybe some detailed information can be the secret of Afreeca Freecs. So,
많이 하고 이 두 선수가 굉장히 힘들었을 것 같아요.
But thank you for your answer.
그 6일간의 그동안 많은 것들을 준비했구나라는 걸 느껴가지고 저희가 이걸 지켜보면서 마음이 너무 안 좋아가지고 특히 오늘 또 초복 아니겠어요? 알아요?
you
오늘
know,
초복인 거?
today Korea
그것도
marks
먹었어요?
the start of the hottest time of summer, according to the lunar
뭐 먹었는데
calendar.
그러니까?
Did you guys have anything healthy today? You know, it's Korean tradition, right?
뭐 그런 거
네네.
해주신단 말이에요. 그래서
네.
그거 먹고 아 오늘 초복인데 내일 삼계탕 해줄게 해주셔가지고
Well,
네, 웃으면서 나왔습니다.
그때는 역시
we
우리가 또
maybe after we get back to the house, yeah, we're gonna eat something really healthy.
삼계탕 집에 가면 가장 위에 있는 메뉴가 있습니다. 전복 삼계탕이라고 가장
So we
비싸가지고
prepared this
가면은
chicken
먹지 못하는
ginseng soup
건데
for you
요걸
guys,
한번
which is
준비를
Korean
해봤어요.
tradition.
네, 가가지고 일단 내일 이모님 해주시는 것도 감사히 드시면 되겠습니다.만
So hope you guys can cope with this sizzling hit with this soup.
이렇게 되면서 미묘하게 됐네요. 다음 경기가 BBQ예요.
And your next opponent will be BBQ Olivers.
좀 이상한 상황이 됐는데
Well.
어떻습니까? 지금 흐름이 지금 굉장히 좋거든요, 아프리카가. 지금
What are your thoughts about the next opponent?
다음 경기에 대한 그 각오 한 말씀 먼저 부탁드릴까요?
Any last words?
이제 연패를 끊어서 이제 분위기를 잡았잖아요. 예, 그래서
I think, yeah, we kind of got rhythm back to ourselves. So I want to stack up this victory from now on.
늘었어요. 자신감이 상당히 늘었어. 네, 일단 역시.
Well, it's really good to see Keen being really confident on the interview stage.
굉장히 더운 날씨에 사실상 오늘 완전
And Spirit.
그런
Even though the weather is really hot, there are a lot of fans out here supporting for you guys. Any message for your fans?
일단 이런 과분한 관심 주셔서 정말 감사하고요.
I always
오늘 날이
appreciate
진짜
this love and support.
여기 먼 길 와주셔서 너무 감사드리고
And I know this weather is really crazy nowadays, so thank you for coming out to support us in this arena. And I'm gonna make sure to take down BBQ Olivers our next opponent.
오늘 진짜 1위를 상대로 2대0으로 승리했습니다. 사실상 그리핀의
So Freecs picked up 2-0 victory against Griffin. So hope they can stack up this victory from the rest of the summer split, and I will pass it back to our casters. Thank you.
Thank you, Ji-sun, for the wonderful translation. We are going to have the very quick 2-0. Today's result, Afreeca just stomp out one of the better teams we have here in LCK.
And the streak is broken. First set in 7 that doesn't go to 3 games. Well-deserving victory for Afreeca Freecs. I picked Afreeca and KT. It's my teams to watch this season, and well, maybe 50% is going to be the number here, but it's still early. So much can change. Griffin started strong. Will they end strong? We'll see Griffin against Hanwha Life, and now suddenly, that's a match where you think, if Hanwha Life wins, what does it mean for the top 5? Because Griffin may have started strong, but there's a lot of time to fall as well, Valdez.
Yeah, literally could mean anything. And guys, I know I have the stickers on. Maybe that was the curse. Maybe that's what happened today. I lost the bet, and I had to join Team Griffin, and Griffin just got angry, and they lost. So Afreeca, the better team tonight, although Griffin was the better team against Kingzone.
It's going to be about a 50-minute break. Looking at the timer here till SKT versus MVP. Both these teams down the bottom. If anyone's going to make a run, people are still asking me every day, all right, I know everything, I read about everything, can SKT make Worlds? It's looking unlikely, Valdez. They need to start their charge now. They don't have that many circuit points. They're probably going to make it to the regional qualifier, but there's a lot of work to be done. Beating MVP, the first order of business for SKT.
Yeah, and when you're in this position, when you're only one spot ahead of MVP, can you really be confident going into it? I feel like SKT, they have a long ladder to climb, Papa.
Definitely do. We'll see what the roster is. Will we see Wolf come back today? No new stars to come in. No change in their roster for the second round robin. But that's going to be our second match. Again, a long break. Sorry about that one. We'll get the fans in around an 8 p.m. start for Pick Band, but 7:50 here for the stream.
Yeah, should be good. So we will join you guys in about 50 minutes. Thank you for joining us for the first series. We'll see you in a bit.
I see you always wanna go somewhere to waste your golden soul. I see the smile you never show. Oh no. Oh, when the morning sun.
It's been many days, many ways misled, knowing that I'm tiptoeing on both sides of the fence, trying to figure it out. but I'm living in doubt. So scared one day that your grace might run out. Cause I'm so far from perfect, so close to worthless. Feeling no good for worship. Trying to understand this life that you purchased. Am I just a man destined for death, or do I deserve it? You died for my sins and that's the verdict. You carried out God's true will and purpose with urgency for the sake of love. Forgiveness in eternity, your grace is enough. I got so many questions, so many things to change. I'm calling out, but sometimes you're far away. I get discouraged and seem to always fall flat. But that's when you pick me up and bring me back.